I know we haven't gotten to Saturday's games yet, but I feel confident in saying that nobody will see their stock rise more than Andrew Body saw his jump after Thursday's night of action. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S, ends with an S. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. I understand that it is the game of the week. It is FAMU versus Howard. It is the Orange Blossom Classic, but we're going to change our normal scheduling because of what happened last night, because of what happened in Thursday's game. So in segment 3, we'll take a look at 2 storylines to watch instead of our key to victory. And we will infuse the key to victory in segment 2 along with our matchup. So instead of a key for Howard, a key for FAMU, I'm going to label the key matchup within our triumvirate of things to watch. But this is the Andrew Body that I've been waiting for. This is the Andrew Body that I feel like I've been telling everybody who watches this show to watch out for. Now, I was about to lie to you. I do like to say I told you so. I think everybody likes to say I told you so. But I don't like to come on the show and do it. They say be gracious, be humble, right? And I tend to follow those things. But when you've been preaching something as long as I have and feeling like I've honestly been alone in this, you better believe I'm going to come in, I'm going to tell you, I told you. I tried to tell you about Andrew Body. I tried to tell you we shouldn't be writing him off. And I think that Thursday night was a great way to showcase that. Now, many people may say, it's one game. And yeah, I told you on Monday, avoid all overreactions. But telling you that Andrew Body has arrived as the person I thought that he always was, that many of us, it started as many and it began to dwindle down. But I'll say a lot of us still, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If you was on the train once before, come on, redeem your boarding pass. But Andrew Body showed on Thursday night the Andrew Body that everybody thought he could be once upon a time. Now, as those years went on and he dealt with his injuries, a lot of people began to fall off the bandwagon. A lot of people hopped off the train. I was looking around like Will Smith at the end of Fresh Prince because I didn't see anybody around. It was just me and the conductor. Matter of fact, I'm not so certain that the conductor didn't jump off. I felt like the only person on that train. And it feels good to feel vindicated. And I understand. Everything could go absolutely to crap over the next 10 or so weeks. That is true. But at the same time, I don't think it is. I don't. I believe that this is who Andrew Body is. I do not believe that Body had a good game. I think he had an Andrew Body game. Is he going to be as efficient as he was on Thursday every single week? No. And I think if you're writing off his performance because UAB is a bad FBS team, let's not do that. Because how many quarterbacks in the SWAC are doing what Andrew Body did against specifically UAB? Or let's widen the spectrum. How many quarterbacks are doing what Andrew Body did against UAB, against other bad FBS teams? Now, I get it. They're picked to finish last in their conference. So maybe I should remove my air quotes. They probably are a bad FBS team. But how many of the quarterbacks in the SWAC are doing that to bad FBS teams? I only ask it a couple of times because you're not here to answer. You're not here to retort. This is semi-rhetorical unless you want to say it in the comments, unless you want to tweet me, unless you want to DM me. I'll take the answer, but I do not believe that it's going to be a long list. I don't think you can go that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. They're all doing what Andrew Body did. I don't agree with that. I would love to hear you try, though. So that's why I'm not one for discrediting what he did because of the competition. I'm really not. So let's go through the numbers. Let's get specific with the stats. 18 completions, 24 attempts, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's all through the air. On the ground, he has 16 carries for 119 yards and 1 touchdown. So you have 5 total touchdowns out of Body on the night. And this was a fantastic way to say, this is who I am. I'll tell you this. Early in the game, I had a slight fear because I watched the North Carolina Central versus Alabama State game, and I thought that he was just a runner. I didn't think that they gave him enough passing opportunities and also didn't love how he threw the ball in that game. So when I saw early that he was running all over UAB, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, he's showing the legs. Of course, you worry about the health, but he's showing the legs. I know people are going to write it off. And I seen a tweet saying, oh, well, he's just going to run the football. And then he started dicing them up in the air. And that's what I believe was necessary because we knew Andrew Body could run. And I think most of us knew he could throw, but I also think more of us forgot than remembered. Andrew Body finishes the day with just 6 incompletions. He has 312 yards. And one thing I thought was interesting is if you go to PFF and you break down the distance, right, the air yards that he was 4 of 5 when passes went longer than 20 yards in the air. He was very efficient in those. You look at his passing grade, actually the farther he gets from the line of scrimmage, he improves. He goes 64.7, 73 even, 81 even, and then 94.5. So that's behind the line of scrimmage, short, medium, deep. These advanced stats to me do add a lot to what he was able to do. Andrew Body was able to come in and not only have a good game, but he showed up on money downs. He showed up on third. The pressure was around him. He was elusive. I got to go back and look to see how many hits he took because I did hear that. I didn't notice it because I thought he was making a lot of plays by himself. Not when I say plays by himself, I specifically mean with his legs. I thought that there was pressure around and he did a good job of moving his legs, moving his feet, whether it was crawling up in the pocket to deliver a pass or if it was running. Because as much as he was running the football, we need to also acknowledge that Body did a great job of scrambling and throwing. There was one touchdown near the end zone. I think it was about a 5-6 yard touchdown in which he ran to his left and threw a strike right to the pylon. That was a fantastic throw, and I think it was third down. He had a throw right up the middle of the field. It was the last touchdown. I thought that touchdown at the end of halftime where it looked like, okay, he's going to run and they're just going to get into field goal range. And instead, he kept his eyes up and he threw a touchdown to Ajay Harrell. Right? Like, here's the thing. Andrew Body is the epitome of a dual threat quarterback. And a lot of times we think throw the football, run the football. And when you're ready to run, you run. And I think that if you watch his game against North Carolina Central last year, you look at the beginning of this game versus UAB, you may think that once he makes that decision, he's running. But I love that there was multiple times throughout the game that he kept his eyes up, threatened with his legs, but then threw a strike with his arm. I thought that that was the next step in progression. And overall, if you want to see the epitome of Body, he showed you that against UAB. If you want to see the epitome of Andrew Body, he showed you that versus UAB. This is my I told you so moment. I'll be honest with you, but I did it on Twitter. I can't say it too many times here. I don't want to say it too many times here, but this is the Andrew Body that a lot of his believers have been waiting for. This is the Andrew Body that makes Alabama State a player in the SWAC. We're going to expand upon that next week. Monday, we're going to come back and we are going to talk about it. This was just such a major, major game. Because tell me, when was the last time you seen Alabama State in a shootout? When was the last time you seen Alabama State in a shootout with a powerful offense? Or, no, I shouldn't say powerful offense because I don't think UAB is that. But when was the last time you seen Alabama State in a shootout with an FBS team? Right? Like, I think I've seen them in a 30-20 shootout against Bethune-Cookman. But for the most part, they've been known to be a defensive team. I love this. I love this. This is such an interesting turn of events. We're going to talk about it on Monday. Trust and believe that. But Andrew Body's stock has risen dramatically because I think that he was at a pivotal point And this is the first game of many. He's going to have to continue to prove it throughout the season. But Body reached a pivotal point where he got injured in the last 2 years. And a lot of people forgot how we used to talk about him. And I think a lot of people began to write him off as if he was playing poorly. That was my biggest disagreement with the narrative, is that it was treated that he was playing poorly. If it was just health, I would have said, okay, I understand, can't argue. But a lot of people was like, yeah, he's overrated. He isn't this, he isn't that. I'm tired of saying it. How long are we going to say that Andrew Body's going to be this? I think the reason that we said that's the thing. A couple of people say, how long are we going to say what Andrew Body could be? I think Thursday night showed why we kept saying it. It showed why I kept saying it. Like I said, you can call it bias. You can say it's allegiance to the alma mater, and he used to be a Texas Southern Tiger. I just think it's acknowledging the talent I saw, and we saw it again on Thursday. If he can continue to play like this, it's going to be larger conversations at play. Now, as we push forward, let's get into our game of the week. FAMU versus Howard, Orange Blossom Classic. Let's get into it as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. It doesn't matter what it is that you're looking for. It doesn't matter who the game is or where the game is. Game Time has you covered, because when it comes to Game Time, I'm sitting here thinking about WNBA. I was able to get out there. I was so happy that I was able to get out there. The NFL season is rolling around. Who wants to go see the Micah Parsons Dallas Cowboys? You can see Dak Prescott, though. You go see the Mavericks. I'm just naming people who are local to me, but it's all of that. You can go see theater plays. You can go see monster jams. You can see everything. If it has a ticket, Game Time can get it for you. It is that simple. You go to Game Time, download the app, and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So what are you even waiting for at this point? Download Game Time today. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On College Football, because we got action. Tomorrow we got Ohio State versus Texas. We got LSU versus Clemson. We have Alabama versus Florida State. Don't know how many people are super excited for that, but that's probably the big trio of next week's games or tomorrow's games. Right now, we're going to highlight the 3 matchups to watch in the Orange Blossom Classic. And I'm going to go ahead and start off with Noah Miles versus Charles Davis. So this is one that is very difficult to predict because it's a chess game. Miles versus Davis could happen consistently, could happen occasionally, could happen not at all. If you go through Noah Miles's positional breakdown, he lined up on the left and the right side pretty much equal. There's no difference. I don't think it's the exact number. I think it might be separated by like 1 or 2, less than 5, if I'm not mistaken. And because of that, you don't know where he's going to line up. So will he line up in front of Charles Davis? Maybe. When he does, is it a prime time matchup? Absolutely. Because here goes the chess match. Do I go with my best player, knowing I can, hey, I don't care if that's a all-conference player. I don't care that he was preseason all-conference this year. He was all-conference after last season. I got Noah Miles. I feel confident no matter what. Or, as a defensive coordinator, do you say we're going to put him on the weaker of the offensive tackles? I think that is a very smart thing to do, because at the end of the day, this is not beat your chest and we're going to make sure that I'm the biggest man here and let's show how. It's about winning a football game and exploiting matchups rather than improving something. A lot of times is how you win. Some people just don't care. Some people just feel like I'm gonna put my good on your good. I don't care. This is not a wide receiver cornerback matchup. So obviously there is no chasing. There is no traveling, anything of that nature. I think a lot of attention does go to Ashton Grable, but we have to acknowledge that they have an all-conference tackle in Charles Davis as well. There's not too much to talk about him. He's a pretty good pass blocker. I think he graded in the 80s last year. I just got PFF if you can't tell. So I'm starting to dig into a lot of their grading and a lot of their positional lineups, and that's been really helpful for me. And I think we'll see that translate into the game of the week as we do it. So perfect example, the next one, Jamil Sanders versus Braylon Smith. And Smith spent a lot of time lined up in the slot. You look at his, I think maybe, man, it had to be about 3/4, of his snaps came in the slot. How much of that has to do with the fact that he was the third, fourth wide receiving threat? I don't know. Right. So you had guys like Casey Hawthorne. You had guys like Richie. I'm not even going to try to butcher his name, but he only played 4 games last year anyway. You had guys like, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, you had 2 receivers who had 400 yards. Howard wasn't a great passing school last year, but Braylon Smith is the top returning wide receiver. So he only has 17 catches. I expect him to step into a bigger role. We've talked about things like this with Chance Peterson, with I'm doing Chauncey Spikes. I'm doing a terrible job with brain farts. I wanted to call him Tequila Spikes. But anyway, we talked about that with these players where you're having to step into a bigger role. And that's how I view Braylon Smith, where does he continue to play primarily in a slot? We'll see. If he does, then it's Braylon Smith versus Jamil Sanders. If it's not, and he decides to split out wide, then we'll see, depending on how FAMU treats it. I don't think that FAMU will follow. I think that FAMU will just play aside, and it may be Smith versus TJ Huggins. It's just a matter, but FAMU has some defensive backs. Sanders was a Aeneas Williams Award watch list member. A lot of people felt like Huggins should have been on that list as well. So you're looking at a preseason first-team all-SWAC player. These are good cornerbacks. One plays primarily in the slot with Sanders, and then you also have one who plays primarily outside with TJ Huggins. So it'll be a very interesting matchup. But the matchup is Eden James versus the FAMU front seven. When it comes to the Orange Blossom Classic, when it comes to the Orange Blossom Classic, the matchup that's going to break everything down to me is Eden James versus the FAMU front seven. Because I don't know about the passing game for Howard. It wasn't great last year. Are they bringing back Ja'Shawn Scroggins? Is he going to start again? He's going to have to take a massive step forward if we're going to be talking about their offense and their success. But one guy who is, once again, stepping into a bigger role is Eden James. And I've been waiting for James for a while, right? Like, James is a guy who I've always liked his game. I've always liked how they used him in spurts. But now he's going to be the guy. And that's the biggest difference. So what are my expectations for Eden James? He wants to be a 1,000-yard runner. I think he has that well within his reach. But how will he be used? How often will he be used? I think that's going to determine on the quarterback, because if you're going to have Scroggins out there and he's going to be running the football, it's going to dig into how much your top running back is going to get, as well as all the running backs who are underneath. That's one of the reasons I think that James struggled. He didn't get a lot of carries last year. But you look at what my expectations are for 2025 compared to 2024, he had 3 games with 15 touches and none with 20. He had 6 games with less than 10 touches. Now, mind you, when I say touches, I'm not talking about rushing attempts. I'm talking about 15 combined rushes and receptions. He only had 3 games where he hit 15. I expect that to be regular for him. Because you look at Jared Hunter, and Hunter had 6 games with more than 15 touches and 4 games with more than 15 rushing attempts. So I expect that Eden James coming in will get a similar workload. So as last year, he had more games with less than 10 touches. I don't know if he sees but 3 games with less than 10 rushing attempts. 10 total touches versus 10 rushing attempts. I think he'll be regularly above 15. And depending on the quarterback situation, if you have a mobile quarterback, is going to dig into your rushing attempts. It just is. That's just part of the game. But if they have somebody who is more of a drop back, less of a dual threat, I think that you'll see them run the football more. I hated how Howard used their running backs last year. They didn't use them enough. I didn't think that Scroggins was dynamic enough to be digging into the carries of Hunter and James. But, hey, life. That's last year. We're on to 2025. But this is the matchup, because I expect this to be the engine of Howard's offense, Eden James in a running attack. I expect that FAMU understands this and knows they must defend. One of the bigger storylines of the offseason coming out of Tallahassee, next to the quarterback. That's obviously number one. But next to the quarterback, one of the biggest conversations coming out of Tallahassee, Florida, is will Florida A&M bring back the dark cloud defense? Will they be able to reclaim the glory that they've seen over the last couple of years until 2024? Because last year, if you specifically look at the run game, they were 7th in the conference, middle of the pack, not strong, as opposed to being one of the better defenders in the SWAC. That's the biggest thing. They took a dip. Will they be able to pick it back up? Because if you're going to have a Howard team that's going to run the football, whether that's with a guy at quarterback or a guy at running back who is going to run the football, you have to be able to defend. Otherwise, you are going to struggle to win this game. That's why I have it as my key matchup, because running the football allows you to control pace. Now, of course, sometimes you get a huge run where one play 73 yards or something like that. But a lot of times it allows you to stay ahead of the line of scrimmage. It allows you to play on schedule. It allows you to get into easier third downs. It allows you to run clock, and they can't score when they don't have the football. It allows you to just move methodically. If you can run the ball, you get in the third and short, you feel like you can run it. If you don't get it and it's fourth and short, you feel like you can run again. These are all of the things that come from running the football. It's about setting the tone. I believe that Eden James, the FAMU defensive line versus the Howard offensive line, those are going to be the tone setters within this matchup. This is the pivotal head-to-head in the game. Can Howard run the football? Can FAMU stop the football from being ran down their throat? I thought we saw this in the first game versus Norfolk State where they struggled. You have to be better. If FAMU is going to win this game, they have to stop the run. They have to stop the run. Point blank, period. Now, as you push forward, let's look at our two storylines to watch, one of which we've already kind of teased, so we're not going to go too deep into the mystery of RJ Johnson, but there is one side of that conversation that I did not mention. So I'll do that today as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Upside. Hey, Locked On HBCU fans, are we still paying full price for gas in 2025? Why are you still leaving money behind? Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simple. Download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code football and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. That means if you had $3, now you're at $2.75. Hopefully you're not looking at $3, but that's how gas goes these days. At first, I thought it was too good to be true. But people are legitimately making up to $300 a year just from already doing things they were going to do. You're going to get gas. I'm not asking you to get more than you would get. You get your normal amount of gas and you can get up to $300. So don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code football for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. The debut of RJ Johnson is kind of twofold, and I only looked at one side of the spectrum. So I want to correct that, but for my everydayers who maybe didn't check this out on Tuesday, I believe it was, but RJ Johnson is the starting quarterback for FAMU, but he's never played a down of college football. He hasn't even came in or Toledo was up by 30 or the game was all the way over, so now we're going to go ahead and put him in, let him throw a couple of passes. He hasn't seen a lick of football on the collegiate level. So for me, that makes him a mystery. For me, I'm not comfortable reflecting on what you did in high school 2 years ago. You're not a first-year transfer, and you're also not a guy who's fresh out of high school. So if you only spent a year in high school, maybe I'll look at it. But to me, especially at quarterback, there's so many different things that go into play. It's pointless looking at a guy's high school tape that was from 2 to 3 years ago. I want to know what you did in college. And when it comes to Johnson, he hasn't done anything yet. So he's not good, bad, he's unproven. It's a genuine blank slate. Now, on one hand, I think it actually helps FAMU because FAMU has a mystery quarterback where there's not a lot of film on him. Unless you have a guy at Howard who recruited him when he was in the transfer portal, then you probably have some practice film. But that's it. So that with that being a relative mystery at quarterback, I don't know how they're going to defend that. I don't. So that'll be something that you should look forward to. And then secondly, what is he going to do? Because this is his first time really getting action. This is his first time really saying, I am a starting quarterback. This is my first time saying I'm a college quarterback. So I think he has to figure some things out. Is he prepared? Yes. But are there things that he can't prepare for until he gets into the heat of battle? I'd say yes. I've never done this. I think that I've talked to enough people to where that is reasonable. And it's about how fast do you adjust? How fast are you picking up blitz timing? How fast are you picking up actually having pressure in your face? I think that these things play a part. Luckily, you have guys like Grable and Davis who are talented offensive linemen who can keep you protected, but you're going to get pressure in your face at some point. It's just going to happen. So that's one way or two ways to look at this. But I think that the debut of RJ Johnson has to be the biggest storyline out of this. Unless you're going to look at it from a holistic, put a smile on your face view. FAMU's back in the Orange Blossom Classic. And this just feels right. At the end of the day, FAMU was never supposed to be out of this game. FAMU wasn't supposed to take a break. I'm glad we got Central versus Bama State. I love that matchup. But FAMU was never supposed to be out of this game. They just weren't. So the fact that they're back makes sense. The fans, local, everything fits in. I don't have too much to say when it comes to this game, or excuse me, when it comes to this aspect of the game, because that's pageantry, that's the tradition of events that have gone on throughout the entirety of the week. Once you get to the 60 minutes of action, I do think having a hometown crowd plays a part, but you also play at home. So, like, I don't know how much that helps. It's just a typical home field advantage. That's the way I look at it. It's neutral site, but Miami to Tallahassee versus Miami to Washington. Who do you think is going to have more representation? This is a cool repeat of the first OBC. So, there's good stories here. But all in all, FAMU returning home to me, returning back to the classic that is theirs. I had somebody challenge me on how it could be their classic, because until last year, there's only one team that played in every single game. It was a revolving door of opponents for FAMU. I think we're back to normal. Last year was weird. It was a great weird. I love that game, but it was a weird event. We'll be back on Monday to talk about. I don't think we're going to do Monday mailbox. I just don't. I don't think we are. Maybe I'll talk about some of the PV TSU comments I've gotten so far. Also, I want to be clear that what Granger's accused of, disgusting, right? I don't know if I think I spent time talking about Jackson and not necessarily making it clear that if what he's accused of was true or is true, I will not defend Granger. I just want to be clear on where I stand on that. But anyway, we'll be back on Monday. We're going to talk about how Alabama State is a SWAC contender, and that was confirmed to me on Thursday, despite the terrible performance of their defense. I want to talk about why that might not be as bad as we think, and then also why, the offense kind of outweighs that negative anyway. So I'll see you on Monday. But until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed, enjoy some freaking football. Peace.